Year 1977. Somewhere in Asia, a 23-year-old youngster submitted one of his one-shot works for a contest announced by the weekly Shonen Jump magazine, whose creation was eventually read and appreciated by editor Kazuhiko Torishima, but his content wasn't suitable for the competition since only original works could partake in it, whereas the youngster's work happened to be a Star Wars parody, which he was a massive fan of. Nevertheless, Torishima realized he was dealing with a quite persistent young man, so encouraged him to keep sending him more of his mangas, which he did manage to collect in a proper anthology, his Real Blank Piece Theater. In 1978, Shueisha magazines published Wonder Island, a story about a former World War II kamikaze pilot willing to leave said island, and Wonder Island 2 in 1979, featuring the same setting but with completely different protagonists. They didn't get much success, but no flop can stop young Toriyama's ambition, as he would publish another one-shot in 79, Tomato the Cutesy Gamshu, following his new editor Torishima's guidelines of letting a girl be a main character. Now this is where we might start noticing a pattern, since it did receive better feedback in spite of Toriyama's initial reluctance, so what would his next step be? Would he be only carrying on his one-shot anthologies, or would he decide to evolve and go all out? February the 4th, 1980. Shonen Jump published the first chapter of a full-fledged manga this time, in which the author definitely went all out right from the start. And sure he did. 24-year-old Toriyama Akira did come up with a Dr. Slump manga, which has literally anything you wish in a fictional medium. Memorable protagonists, toilet gags, pop culture references, fourth wall breaks, trope subversions, meta-humor and self-mockery. Toriyama may be mostly known for brawls, but this shouldn't really diminish the all-around importance of Dr. Slump, which isn't merely a matter of numbers, but of delivering one message. That is, the concrete possibility to create a manga without superfluity or far-fetched exposition, only using the potential of its ludicrous environment, from humor to its round character artwork, with the only edge being its trademarked swallow wing smirk. Not even the small yet fair amount of action therein can deprive the product of its nature, as Toriyama managed to create the perfect environment, in which he narrates the adventures of the robotic girl Arale and of her inventor Senbei Norimaki, who certainly make a great comedic duo because they're not virtuous. A character also requires some flaws to supply some more interest, which explains why the Dr. Slump cast is so good at this, with each one of them displaying some promiscuous sins, deliberately or not. For example, Arale and Senbei are definitely three-dimensional protagonists, but their sins follow specific detours because Senbei is deliberately overambitious and perverted, since he wants his goofy inventions to succeed and wants to observe Arale's teacher unwind, by even arranging a voyeuristic TV set to watch her take a bath, because porn websites and OnlyFans didn't exist in the 80s, whose efforts mostly failed due to outer impediments or sheer bad luck. Whereas Arale is undeliberately naive and dangerous because she obviously lacks common sense and can't control both her kindness and super strength, often to the detriment of everyone else, including Senbei, thus resulting in a rather precious comedic source. Given such a premise, do you have the idea of how many situations this duo can generate? Like Senbei being forced to dress up as a woman to buy girl undergarments so that he won't appear as a pervert. Or the explosive wake-up call gag. Every time I read Dr. Slump, only one word comes to mind: fun. As the main cast is shown having fun while experiencing their adventures, which is only made possible by the author having fun, and also making fun of characters, tropes, readers, real-life acquaintances like his own editor Torishima, and even himself as a plain caricature or as Bird-yama, since Tori means bird in Japanese. The softer drawings, the wacky register, the ludicrous designs function enough to make devices like exposition completely unneeded, because the stakes are low and the story is light-hearted. Toriyama carried on this new manga series until 1984, but given its worldwide success, Toei Animation was standing right on the sidelines, taking notes and pondering if Dr. Slump would be worth an animated adaptation. It would. April 8, 1981. Toriyama's Dr. Slump Arale-chan officially occupied the Fuji TV slot of Wednesday evenings, finally achieving the right occasion for it to shine ultimately, so that even non-readers could avail themselves of it. Believe this was the rightful choice on Toei's side, because animation nourishes the original manga by giving life to its various events within, thus allowing viewers to sit back and do nothing for 20 straight minutes without the need to turn the pages, also receiving longer and more extensive info in order to slow down Toriyama's otherwise frantic pacing. Whilst not the most mind-blowing 80s anime visual-wise, Toei clearly picked the correct staff to give Dr. Slump the justice it deserves. The series direction would be entrusted to regular Minoru Kazaki from Studio Junio, and Toriyama's designs would be reproduced by an artist we might meet in more than an occasion across this new series, Minoru Maeda from Studio Junio, as he could naturally replicate the author's soft approach without edges. However, it doesn't stop here, as visuals alone cannot complete an animated medium without proper acoustics. Hidenori Arai would arrange the sound effects, whilst background music would be composed by an absolute expert, who had created incidental music for live-action films and animes like Tiger Mask, Hurricane Polymar, Doraemon, and a few manga animes. Shunsuke Kikuchi. We are definitely meeting his full name again across this series as well, just like a few people working on the voice acting section, such as Mamiko Yama's Arale, Kenji Utsume's Senbei, Mariko Mukai's Midori, and Shigeru Chiba's Sukutsun. I assume these names will pop up again across the series. So, is Dr. Slump exempt from flaws in both adaptations? Well, not entirely, since Toei eventually got a bit too carried away with the series by extending it for over 200 episodes, often taking several liberties, which clearly didn't please Torishima. Besides, it's maybe my impression, but I feel the series suffers a slight dip in quality after Senbei marries Midori, because A. it inevitably puts an end to Senbei's virginity subplot, and B. entirely subjective. I'm actually inclined to agree with Toriyama's unenthusiastic thought on romance, since it was Torishima who came up with Senbei getting hitched. And if you think such a character progression was too hasty, you're indeed right. But I don't directly blame Toriyama, because romance sure is a boring trope and does nothing but argue with the main topics of Dr. Slump. After all, if the show needed some sort of drama so urgently, why would he create Dr. Mashirito in the first place? I know I'm nitpicking too much, and you might be thinking the video title's been baiting you, but the thing is, I needed a verbose prologue in order to better introduce the author's subsequent creation. Dragon Boy. Yes, you heard it right, Dragon Boy. Released in 1983, which followed his editor Torishima's advice to take his kung fu movie enjoyment into account by turning it into a shonen manga. No more birdiyama or butt-headed aliens, martial arts are the main core now, specifically kung fu a la Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan. Toriyama was besides supported by his own wife, who was keen on Chinese culture and tradition and also helped him draw backgrounds. Though despite the fair success of Dragon Boy, this was too soon to be considered an arrival point, quite the opposite, because this is where its breakthrough happened. In 1984, Dr. Slump was still airing on Fuji TV, but Toriyama essentially had entirely different plans in mind, like recycling a few character designs from his past creations, like Plummo from The Adventure of Tang Po released in 83, reconsidering the Slumpesque spirit, but in a much less wild and nonsensical manner, lastly blending them with notions of Chinese culture acting as the perfect common thread. The outcome was potentially the ultimate shonen manga produced theretofore, which appeared to be ready for the official Shonen Jump release, but something was still missing. The new project took shape as the light-hearted action-centered story, and Toriyama could already avail of a female protagonist, Plummo. You only had to find her a more appropriate name, like Bloomers, for example. But is that it? Dr. Slump had two main characters. Then why shouldn't his breakthrough work follow that very pattern? Toriyama absolutely needed another protagonist besides Bloomers, so this is where Chinese literature comes into play, specifically the novel Journey of the West, in which the protagonist, the Monkey King, is imprisoned under a mountain by the Buddha in person upon rebelling against heaven. He's a nearly unbeatable warrior, literally owning any kind of unique powers, from super strength and super speed to efficient memory and even magic. But Toriyama would mainly stick to the above average strength and speed matter and the Monkey King's nomenclature and countenance. In fact, his other name is Son Wukong, whose Japanese translation filled that missing slot by default. He finally did it. The new manga will feature a boy with a tail and a Ruribang as a weapon as a male protagonist, whose full name will basically be the Japanese translation of Son Wukong. Therefore, we lastly get to the official date, November the 20th, 1984, the day of the Journey of the West-like adventures of Son Goku, Dragon Boru or Dragon Ball. This is where our story began, as well as my new format in which I'm comparing the substantial differences between Toriyama's product and Toei's anime adaptation. Yet that's not all, since I'm also giving a proper context to each arc of the franchise, from visuals to acoustics, because I don't want it to be a blended dull series. And considering the 40th anniversary of Dragon Ball is approaching, I suppose this is the correct opportunity to take a look back at the entire series from the very beginning. So please support this new format because we're going to have a lot of fun, and also going to feel genuine frustration.